All right. Well, good evening, Huskies. My name is Josh Brew. I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement, and I have the pleasure of being your host for this evening. On behalf of the Office of Alumni Relations and the UConn Foundation, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Welcome to the Neighborhood Philly program. Joining me from the Alumni Engagement team is Jody Kaplan, our Senior Director of Alumni Relations, who's going to be handling all of our production aspects tonight. For those of you that are our newest Huskies to the family, welcome to our alumni community. We're thrilled to have you. And to those of you that are joining us as more seasoned pups, welcome back. And we are glad that you're here joining us tonight as well to learn a little bit about Philly. Today, we're excited to bring you an awesome panel of Philly area experts, people who have done what you are hoping to do or may have already done, and people who you can speak to, we can speak to the most crucial and interesting aspects that you need to know about living in the Philly area. From apartment hunting to what bars are the best and most friendly to Huskies to traffic patterns and public transit tips. All of these things we're going to hopefully cover a little bit of tonight and basically hopefully get you all the information you need to be successful on your potential move to Philly. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started, as always, with virtual events. As you might have already heard, this event is being recorded, so we will be able to provide a link to all of you who are attending now to refer back to. But for those of you who took advantage also of our address and information updating deadline during registration, we will be sending out those lanyards to you shortly, so stay tuned. Next, all attendees are muted right now. So if you do have questions and you want to interact with the panelists that are here with us today, feel free to throw that into the Q&A section on your toolbar, and we'll do our best to answer all of those before the end of the night. And additionally, feel free to use the chat function as well to engage with each other throughout the evening. Obviously, this is a great time to talk to other people about what you're doing and what you're hoping to do, and if you're in Philly and your favorite haunts that you go to. Last, we realized it's also hard to meet people in this virtual environment. So we've scheduled a post-panel happy hour and social opportunity via Zoom meeting as well at the end of this. So at the conclusion of the presentation, head on over to the happy hour via the link that was either going to be posted in the chat throughout the event tonight, or if you got an email from us that included that, you can refer back to that. Don't forget to turn your camera on, grab your favorite beverage. We'll all be having one as well with you, so make sure you do that. And in case you can't find any of that information, we are going to be sending you an email in the middle of this program here with that information. So just make sure you copy that link and head on over there. And to entice you to join us for the happy hour, we're actually going to be giving away some UConn alumni or UConn Nation ball caps here. So make sure you join us in the happy hour so that you might be able to get one of those. We actually are going to be giving one to each one of our panelists tonight too. So to thank them for their time tonight. But you got to be present in the happy hour to win, so make sure you join us. Now on to what tonight's all about. Joining us are some of the best and brightest and most fun Huskies you can find in Philadelphia. And I can honestly tell you, I've spent some time with all of these folks, and they really are. So thank you all of you for joining us, for sharing your insights and time with fellow Huskies tonight. And to get us started, I'm going to actually turn this over to our moderator, my longtime friend, a former colleague from our days as students at UConn working at the Homer Babbage Library. She's a resident Philly expert. She's a foodie extraordinaire. Kelly, this show is all yours.
Well, thanks, Josh. My name is Kelly. I am a Philadelphia resident, I guess now for almost 11 years. Time flies. My pronouns are she and hers. And I'm excited to be moderating this panel. So to get things kicked off, I thought maybe we could all go around and introduce ourselves, talk about how long you've lived in Philly and what neighborhood you live in, and then we can kind of dive in from there. So Ben, you're to my right, so I'll pass it over to you.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Kelly. So my name is Ben Pulley. I'm from Philadelphia, born and raised here, just like the Fresh Prince. Then I went to UConn, graduated in 2017. Came back to Philadelphia immediately after graduation. I've been in Philadelphia ever since. I live in the Fairmount area, which is right by the Art Museum or the famous Rocky Steps, and very biased towards Philadelphia sports.
Great. Greer?
Hi, I'm Greer. So I moved to Philadelphia about 2 years ago. I've been a nurse here since I moved down. I also live in the Fairmount area, a great little spot, and I'm just looking forward to sharing my Philadelphia knowledge that I've learned since I got down here.
Awesome, thanks, Greer. And Daniella and Justis, you're next on my screen.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm Daniella Lomo. Moved here about 3 months ago, so we're still pretty much newbies. Graduated from UConn in 2014. I'm currently here for grad school.
Hey, peace everyone. My name is Justis, pronouns he, him, his. As Daniela mentioned, we recently moved here a couple of months ago, originally from Manchester, Connecticut, then bounced around to New York, DC, and then made our way towards Philly, and currently right now living in Center City.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to tap into some of your experiences as new Philadelphians and pass it last but not least, Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Smith here. I've been in Philadelphia for 3 years now in the Fittler Square and Graduate Hospital neighborhoods. And I just recently changed jobs, so I'm learning more about actually having to drive as a commute. So I can maybe talk to you a little bit about that. But I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and hearing what your interests are.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in. So I know we're kind of talking more about, I know we're all talking more about our neighborhood. So just a quick question for everyone, like, how did you end up selecting the neighborhood that you lived in? Or, you know, if you've lived in multiple neighborhoods in the city, what things were you looking for when it came to finding a neighborhood in Philly?
I'll start this off. So when I was moving back to Philadelphia, I already secured a job, and I wanted to be in the city because just because of the lifestyle. There's a lot of things to do down here, but I chose the Fairmount neighborhood because my employer was outside the city. I was driving out towards the King of Prussia area every day, and Fairmount allows for easy access on and off of the major highway as well as other major roadways. To get out of the city real fast as well as get back in. Plus, I really enjoyed that we have a river that has a great running trail. So that I really enjoyed the scenic view and the small neighborhood feel.
Awesome.
I think I had a job at the University of Pennsylvania, so we looked just in and around that area. And we figured, okay, it'd be great to walk if we could, or if I could. So we just found a neighborhood that allowed that, which was like Fittler Square, and then changed to Graduate Hospital, but they're like kind of one in themselves. So it wasn't like a drastic move. But Graduate Hospital is also nice right now because it's right off 76. So I can just hop on the Schuylkill and head out wherever I got to go.
Awesome. For anyone that might be new to Philly, 76 and the Schuylkill are interchangeable. You may see the word Schuylkill and not have any clue how to pronounce it. That's totally okay. I lived here 11 years and I still don't think I can spell it. But Justis and Daniela, what were you both looking at when you were choosing a neighborhood?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we're here because I'm starting grad school, and I'm at UPenn, and so the logic for me was that, well, granted it's COVID, but the logic was to be near other NBA students as well, and a lot of the students are in the Rittenhouse area of Center City, and obviously COVID compliant gatherings, just wanted to be close to that. Plus there's a lot of food in this area and we're foodies, so it kind of helps.
We'll get to that. Don't worry. Awesome. And Greer, how did you find yourself in Fairmount?
So highly recommended by Ben, actually, how I ended up in Fairmount. But what I like about it is that it's very walkable, a lot of restaurants. It is, like he said, very easy to get to the main highways, but it's also really close to the Broad Street line. So it's only a few blocks, and that's one of the main train lines up and down the city. So that makes that really easy too if I want to get anywhere. But it's more of like a neighborhood feel than real inner city, which is something that I was looking for.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a big, I live in, my partner and I live in South Philadelphia, and that was a big pull for me. I lived up in Fairmount I came down here for grad school at Villanova and then worked at Drexel. And so I was commuting over to West Philly every day and actually biking across the parkway, which I don't recommend. And so I lived up there and then loved South Philly just for the kind of neighborhood feel. So is there anything that would you like for, and this is for anyone, you feel like might define your neighborhood or like that your neighborhood is particularly known for?
Yeah, for Fairmount, we have Eastern State Penitentiary. So we do get, I mean, when groups are allowed, we would get a lot of tourists that brought a lot of fresh faces to the neighborhood too. So that was something, especially around Halloween time, that we're missing right now, is everything going on at the penitentiary. They did this haunted house, but we'll look forward to that next year.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's like you get the shrieks like the whole month of October
You're
from
screaming down the street. It's normal.
For Fiddler Square and the Graduate Hospital, like general area, I would say the dog park. So I know that's another topic, so I won't go too much into it, but the Schuylkill River Trail and the Schuylkill River Park is right up like on the west side of the neighborhood. So I think that's definitely a big draw with, you know, the Schuylkill River Trail that then goes all the way out to the suburbs and all the different activities you can do there, especially with the dog park.
In relation to Center City, similar to Rob, Rittenhouse Square has a park right outside where we are, Rittenhouse Park, where a lot of people go for walks, socially distanced meetups, yoga, meditation, outdoor gym. It's kind of like a space where people kind of convene. So that's a particular area of that's a hub that really defines kind of like this Rittenhouse area. And I live it myself. I mean, I go out, do some yoga, meditation in the sun, feeling good, got the sun rays coming. So it's definitely a great space for that.
Awesome. I live in South Philly's kind of broad. It's pretty much everything below Washington, but I live, I guess, like technically in an area called Newbold or like West Passyunk. And my neighborhood is very family oriented. There's like people from all over the world, which was like one of the reasons that I crossed broad and moved over there. And kind of jumping into the next question, which is like what your favorite part about your neighborhood is like, I would say is like my neighbors. I lived on the other side of Broad in South Philly, over in East Passyunk, and I loved what was around my neighborhood, but I love my neighbors here so much. Like we were part of like a Buy Nothing group, and we're like very community oriented, which was like really big for me. And like something that you'll notice if you're in Philly for a while is that Philly is very neighborhoody. So like both in terms of the people, the culture, and also like the architecture. So like you'll go to some parts of West Philly and not even like realize that you're in the city because it's so like lush and green. And then you'll go into like Center City, it's a different feel. Fishtown's a different feel. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. So if you haven't already shared, like what are some awesome things about your neighborhood, or like if there's something particularly that's like, you know, you had to recommend your neighborhood, like what would you write in the Yelp review?
I guess for our neighborhood, I would say proximity. I think because it literally is Center City, everything's in just a close walking distance. Graduate Hospital is right there, Fiddler Square is right there. There's a lot of shopping in this area as well. And then obviously, again, back to the food, but everything's very close and very easy to get to from being right here.
Yeah, I'd have to echo Daniella's sentiments. I mean, the food is just a great highlight and remarkable attribute of Philadelphia. But particularly for the Rittenhouse area, I mean, you got a really great spot called Bon Bon, which is like this Latin vegan spot, and Uptown Veg and just vegan spots. And
Wait, can we get to the food later?
oh yeah, no doubt. We'll get to the food later. But yeah, that's where I'm getting ahead of myself. But,
That's gonna go rabbit hole.
but those spots is definitely the food is definitely a great attribute.
The highlight I'd have to say about Fairmount is just one, proximity. that I feel like within a 20-minute walk, I can be in Center City down by Daniella and Justis, or if I walk 20 minutes in the other direction, I can be close to Fairmount Park, which is a massive park. It feels like that you're out in the woods. So it doesn't even feel like that you're actually in the city. So, and besides our proximity of being so close to every other neighborhood, that we also have, it's very family oriented. It's young professionals. It's a really niche neighborhood, which I think everyone can say about their own neighborhood here in Philadelphia, because to echo Kelly, it's very neighborhoodish.
I think for Grad Hospital, my Yelp review would be, it's got a little bit of everything. Where like they've got a lot of mom and pop coffee shops, but there's also a Starbucks. They got, you know, mom and pop grocery stores. There's also a giant Heirloom, which is like a small market. If we go a little bit north, you're in Center City. You go a little bit south, and it's like South Philadelphia, like Kelly was saying. So I feel like it's kind of like the tweener between, you know, Center City with all the resources there, and then like South Philly.
I love that, the tweener. It's almost like you're graduating from South Philly, or you're graduating from Center City in
Graduate Hospital.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, before we move on to housing, I did just want to put some plugs out for ways to get involved in your neighborhood. One of the benefits of living in such a neighborhoody city is that there are some really great ways to get involved. So there are things called block captains. Like a lot of times, like people will throw block parties in the summer, and they'll like close off your particular block, and then you'll see like bounce houses. This is like all pre-COVID, of course, and we hope that they'll come back after COVID. But there's ways to get involved, and like I'm a poll worker for my specific neighborhood. It's a great way to get to know your neighbors and say, oh, hey, you live 2 houses down from me. It's nice to see you, you know, and get to knock on doors and stuff like that. So definitely get involved within your neighborhood. So I guess moving on to housing, if there is someone listening who is new to Philly or thinking about moving to Philly, what would you say to them, or what advice would you give in terms of like apartment or house hunting? Like, what are some things that really stick out to you about the process?
So on the house hunting process, I forgot to mention earlier that I work in real estate, that I deal with apartments just nationwide, and I hope my employer's not listening. So if you're moving to Philadelphia and you're moving with 2 people or 3 people, that I would really recommend to look at townhomes. Best bang for your buck, just on rentals, and you get a lot more square footage. Plus you get more of that neighborhood vibe. And that when you're looking for housing, that I think something key to look at is if you need parking or not, because parking sometimes can be scarce. Depending on which neighborhood that you go into. Like I know Center City, it's tight for parking, and you might have to pay extra, a few $100s a month. Or you, but if you don't need a car, then Center City might make great sense.
Awesome. I think those are great tips to consider, especially like considering your commute, and also like getting a parking permit, which is another option, which I think it's $35 for the year, but then it's just a matter of trying to find a parking space, which in South Philly is a fun game in itself. But we did have one question from the last section about whether or not Northern Liberties is a good neighborhood. And I'll put a plug in and say that Northern Liberties is a great neighborhood. There's lots of things to do. There's lots of really delicious restaurants. It's also close to Fishtown, which is another great neighborhood. There's a lot of like new developments. I feel like there's always like new businesses popping up there all the time. There's also like the Piazza, which they used to have concerts and music and stuff there, but they had to shut that down. And yeah, there's a lot to do. It's a really great neighborhood for like young professionals. So that's a great question. So sorry, back to advice on apartment and house hunting. So is there anything else that like y'all considered, or that you feel like is specific to Philly when it comes to apartment hunting?
One thing that I wasn't prepared for moving to the city, and this I'm sure is similar for any other city, but some of the streets are so narrow that the sound kind of bounces its way all the way up to your window, no matter what floor you're on. So if you really like your sleep, or you prefer the peace and quiet, just think about the location of the actual townhome or apartment windows in relation to the street, and if you can tolerate that, because I didn't think of that at all.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Our bedroom that I'm actually in now is in the front of, we live in like a apartment in a row home, and it's in the front, and I'm used to having my bedroom in the back where it's quieter. So I had to invest in a white noise machine. So I think that's a really great one.
I think piggybacking off of that, considering like newer buildings versus older buildings, I feel like a lot of the newer buildings have thinner walls. So in terms of noise, just being able to make sure that you visit everywhere that you're interested in to really gauge the space and like know what you're actually walking into, because doing like a virtual tour doesn't always show you everything. So I would say that.
That's a great tip. And Daniella, to your point too, I think like maybe going to see the neighborhood like at different points. So like going to see it during the day or going to see it at night. Like whether, especially as a woman, like do I feel safe walking around this neighborhood at night? That's something that's really important. My first apartment in South Philly, I made the mistake of going to see it during the daytime when the door was open. And I didn't really notice that there was only one window in the living room. So when the door was shut, my apartment was like a dungeon. And I didn't realize that until I signed the lease. So that's something else to consider.
When we were in DC, so like we made sure to look for windows everywhere.
That's a great one. And what about, is there anyone who's like lived in a complex or like an apartment building? And I know Philly's known for their row homes. Would you say that there's like things to consider with either like renting or buying an apartment in a row home, or like, buying a row home, or living in a building?
Yeah, that I'd say so. One thing to keep your eye out, that if you're going to buy into a row home, just keep your eyes out just for additional fees, because that you are sharing that actual structure with other people, especially on the ownership side. But if you're in an apartment complex, it might be a little bit more clear cut. Plus, the apartment complexes might be more larger company focused, or owned by a larger company and more professional. When you might have the townhomes here, that if you're renting one of them, they might be just a mom and pop, or some private investor who might have a handful, or he might have one property and might not have a full-time staff to take care of it.
Yeah, that's a really great point in terms of like your landlord, and like whether you'll need, like whether you kind of are going to get someone that fixes something right away, or someone that is doing the repairs themselves. Like my last landlord lived in Brooklyn, so took a little while if something leaked or something broke. So that's something to consider. And the other thing I think on that is with apartment complexes, if you're someone that like Philly is known for having stoops. So a stoop is like the front steps to a row home. And, like if you get a lot of packages, especially like with being home, like something that you want to consider is like, are you getting a lot of deliveries? If so, like you may want to think about like maybe moving somewhere with either getting a PO box, or maybe getting living somewhere with like a mail room where they can collect those packages, versus like kind of risking that UPS will leave your package on the stoop and you experience the heartbreak of getting a package stolen. So with that, I'm not sure if if any of y'all have lived with roommates here in Philadelphia or have gone through the process of like trying to find a roommate, but if someone was kind of in that boat, where would you say that the best places would be to look for a roommate if you're new to the city and don't have anyone that you know here yet?
I mean, I know I've had a couple friends who I've met now, but when they first moved to the city, didn't really know anybody. And one person found somebody on Craigslist, which may be risky. I mean, you know, do your research, but that ended up working out. And then just through work, there's always somebody who knows somebody who's looking for a roommate. Just word of mouth, I think, has been the biggest thing that I've seen as far as finding, you know, a reliable person to live with.
Yeah, definitely. There's also like neighborhood groups as well. So like I know there's one, I think it's called like West Willie, there's South Silly, there's like Bolden Breezy for Point Breeze and Newbold. I think there's like a Southwest Center City group, and a few. There's pretty much like a neighborhood group on if you're on Facebook for any neighborhood, but there's also like I think Affordable Housing Philadelphia is another group to look for housing situations, whether it's you're looking for a roommate or you're looking just for a place to move. So cool. And overall, would you say that Philly is like, how expensive would you say Philly is? And I'm also looking to see like, you know, Justis and Danielle, I know you've lived in some like traditionally expensive cities, so would love to get all your takes on how you find it.
So I mean, living in New York, it doesn't get any more expensive than that. So everything seems cheap after that. But I think it's pretty comparable if you're in like Center City, especially to like DC prices, potentially New York prices, but you do get more space and more bang for your buck. I think going back to the housing situation, like something that I get here with apartments would be amenities that I wouldn't typically get in like a New York City apartment. So you definitely get more for your money. But like Center City, anywhere from like high 1800s to low 2000s for a one bedroom. I've seen that.
I came from San Francisco right here. So we were paying 2,500 some for a studio with a parking spot for a studio. And to be transparent, we're paying like 1,550 right now for an actual row home. Like we got the whole row home, basement and everything. So that's just like completely a world of difference for what your money will get you here compared to, and I know San Francisco is an outlier, but compared to some of those other major cities, it's completely different. And it's much different even like relative to salaries. So I know salaries are higher in San Francisco, but not relative to what the housing is. So, salaries here will take you a lot further.
Yeah, that's echo off of Rob. That Philadelphia, that the cost of living and housing especially, it's the lowest of all the major cities here in the Northeast. So between Boston, New York, Philly, DC, the best bang for your buck, at the most space that you're going to get is here in Philadelphia. And that, as Daniela said, that you're going to have amenities in your apartment buildings, so you're not going to have to go out and get your own gym membership on top of that, or some other fancy amenities. Like I know they have golf simulators here down in Danielle's neighborhood, and some movie theaters inside their own buildings. So definitely best bang for your buck is in Philly, at least along of the biggest cities here on the East Coast.
And not to mention, if Elon Musk builds that high-speed rail, you can commute to New York and DC in a half an hour, allegedly, but don't tell your friends in New York and DC that, because I'm trying to buy a house. So don't want the prices to go up too much before that happens. So awesome. Well, let's move on. Let's get things moving and talk about transportation. So Septa, let's talk Septa. Have you taken it? What are your tips? What is your favorite form of SEPTA transportation? What are some good to knows? How do you take SEPTA in times of COVID? Like jump in wherever you want to start.
I was living, when I first moved back from San Francisco, full transparency again, I was actually living with my parents out in Lancaster County, which is like not even considered like a suburb of Philly. It's like right after the suburbs of Philly. So it's out there a little bit. So I would actually drive to Thorndale, which was the last stop of one of the regional rails. So the SEPTA regional rail, and take that in. And like if anyone's had a commute with like a commuter rail, like it's pretty good most of the time, but when it's not good, it's not fun for anybody. But overall, it was pretty good. Again, prices were like relatively good. This was all pre-COVID. This was like 3 years ago. But it was, prices were good. It was relatively reliable. And now I know they've updated even more. So they have the SEPTA key, so you can just swipe on and swipe off rather than using like the old tickets and all that stuff. So regional rail is definitely an option. And there are like 4 or so like main regional rail stations in the city that stop at different points in the city. And that's pretty much, besides taking a bus here and there around the neighborhood or the subway to like a sports game, I don't take SEPTA too much because I used to just walk for my commute.
I should back up. Sorry. SEPTA is the transit system here. So it stands for Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority. It's composed of regional rails, as Rob was saying, and also like our subway system and our buses. So there's also PATCO, which goes into New Jersey, and that leads to New Jersey Transit, which is a whole other system. But those are like PATCO and SEPTA are kind of the 2 big transit names that you'll hear in and around Philly.
To jump in as well. So I'm a big subway guy here. That I partially picked the location where I'm at in Fairmount due to the proximity to the Broad Street line. So we have 2 subway systems here. It's very easy to figure out. One goes north-south, the other one goes east-west. And I live off the north-south line. So it's great because I can take it down to go to an Eagles game, Flyers game, which all of our stadiums are directly, it's the last stop in South Philadelphia. And plus it's easy to get to Center City if it's raining out or if it's just too cold to walk the entire time. So definitely a big subway guy. Don't take the buses too much. That's just because I would walk to the subway first. But and then the regional rail is awesome, especially if you get to and from the airport. That they have direct lines that go straight from Center City all the way down to the airport.
Yeah, similar to what Rob and Ben had mentioned, I love just like public transportation and being able to kind of navigate that. So like coming from DC and New York, Philly's a great kind of city to navigate in regards to public transportation. I love riding bikes. So I actually we both actually just purchased a 1-year Indigo bike pass. So we utilize the bike sharing system here. When I was in DC, I utilized that too as the Capital Bike Share, and then New York, they have it there too. But I think it's a great way to be active, stay healthy, and get around. I just kind of carry some hand sanitizer and just sanitize the seat and sanitize the handlebars. And each time I go on, I ride that. You get an hour of a free rental, and then you can rent the electric bikes for like 15 cents a minute or something like that. So you can kind of alternate back and forth between there. And I primarily ride the bike around the city. Like I just kind of get on the bike, and then I primarily use the bike and the bus. So if there's somewhere that I need to go, I'll pop on an Indigo bike, put that in the rail, desanitize it, and then hop right on the bus. It's $2.25, and you just use the card that Rob had mentioned, and you just kind of swipe it. And yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of used to that from like New York or like DC, just kind of getting on a bike and just hopping on like a bus and just kind of going around. So I think it's really easy to kind of utilize that with the SEPTA system. I haven't utilized the subway system too much thus far, just because I've been kind of riding bikes. But I'll see what it looks like now with the kind of transition of seasons, how long I can pull the bike off for. But for now, I'm still riding bikes.
I used to ride my bike from Fairmount to Drexel in the winter, so I believe in you. If I feel like if you can brave a Storrs, Connecticut winter, like you're golden. Like that's one of the could be great, could be not so great things depending on your stance on snow, is that like Philly doesn't get as much snow as Connecticut does, so like you're pretty much good. You might get like a couple storms every couple years. We'll get like a big storm, but like in terms of being able to at least like weather the cold, I feel like if you've like trekked it from like Buckley to Arjona, you're good.
I feel like if you can survive that, I feel like you're good, right? Like I feel like the wind tunnel in UConn gives it like an extra 20 degrees. So I hear you on that, Kelly. I echo that. And one other thing too to mention about transportation, I did bring my car because I do like to have the ability to visit like my family who lives in Connecticut. So it's about a 4-hour drive. And I'm a DJ as well. So I do like to have the ability to have like my equipment and be mobile. But parking is difficult to find, as you have mentioned, but there's this app called Park Angel that does really great work to kind of give you like the differentiation of like, can you park here for 7 hours, 7 days, 24? Daniella found that app and she had let me use it. So I primarily use that app to get around when I do like use my car for going home to Connecticut or DJing, and it's been a gift, truly has been a gift. So Park Angel has definitely changed the game, and I primarily park in South Philly.
Awesome. Yeah. In line with parking apps, there is also an app that you can use to pay meters. So like we used to just have, in certain neighborhoods, there was just quarters. So it was like if you didn't have quarters, you didn't have dimes or nickels, like you were kind of out of luck to try and park. The PPA is the Philadelphia Parking Authority. They are ruthless in certain neighborhoods, so they will get you. They will tow your car. You will have to go out to the IKEA area and go in South Philly to retrieve it for, I think it's like $300 and something to retrieve your car. I know from personal experience. So I would recommend downloading, I think it's called Meter Up is the app. And what's cool is that you can just put in your license, like you put in the make, model, color, and license plate of your car, and then you put in your payment information, and then you can just like pay your meter. You get a little notification when like your time is running out. You can extend your time. Super handy. Definitely recommend that if you have a car. So I know that some of us don't necessarily work in the city or need to leave the city. So like, what has that experience been like in terms of commuting? Do you have any like commuter tips, times to avoid the Schuylkill, tips for navigating the Schuylkill?
I don't have anything to offer about the Schuylkill, but my commute is basically Broad Street. So I had the option, I could either drive my car or take Septa. Based on my sleeping in as long as possible, I chose to take my car, but it was good that there were options. I work up at one of the at Temple University Hospital in North Philly. So there's stops right by the hospitals. And then I know somebody who takes theirs, they take the Market line all the way to Center, or they just take the Market line all the way over to West Philly to go to UPenn. So, I mean, it's definitely easy to utilize those lines if you're staying within the city, especially to get to any of the hospitals.
There, are you going, Rob? Let's go ahead. All right. So I've been a commuter outside the city since I came back. That avoiding the Schuylkill, it's a zero-win game. That you learn to enjoy audiobooks, podcasts, the local radio here. Sometimes you call into the radio station a lot to try and win stuff because you have plenty of time in the car. But you learn the ways to get out of the city efficiently and get back in. Like you don't jump on the Schuylkill immediately. Like I picked where I live because I can take Kelly Drive, which moves a lot faster and then merges into the Schuylkill further up. It's also a little bit more scenic for me. so it's a pretty fun drive, especially when the fall foliage is happening. But on commuting outside the city, that there's a lot of employers that are based outside the city, either on the west side or over on the east side in New Jersey. Tons of employers, like you have Subaru's world headquarters that's over in Camden, massive hospital systems in Camden. But like Camden, New Jersey, it sounds like so far, but it's a 5-minute ride just across the Ben Franklin Bridge for us. So
I used to have a commute of a 30-minute walk, and then I changed jobs, and now in the morning it's about a 15-minute drive or so. So I currently work actually it's called City Line because it's right on Philadelphia and Montgomery County right there. So I do have to take the Schuylkill, but in the morning I go early enough where there's very little traffic. So it takes about 12 to 15 minutes. But then in the evening, it's usually about 25 or so. But Friday was an extra good one. Friday, they decided to do construction on like half the Schuylkill and shut it all down. So that one took like 45, but that's hopefully an outlier. But yeah, as Ben was saying, like you find little tips and tricks. So like I get off and exit before most people would, because then I can kind of scoot through Fairmount Park to get off quicker and stay off City Line Ave, which has a lot of stoplights. So there's kind of little things you do, and you can, if you live out, if you do a reverse commute like I'm doing, you can kind of make it work that way. But if you live out in the burbs and you kind of come in, you can try and pick your time a little bit. Hopefully you may have a flex schedule where you can come in a little earlier and try and leave a little earlier, or even like go in later and stay later and try and hit the after part. But the Schuylkill, as Ben was saying, it's kind of like all roads lead to like some slow traffic and sitting in traffic. But if you can kind of work your way around it and be flexible, it definitely helps.
Awesome. I have worked from home for 5 years, so I'm very, very lucky that I don't have a commute, but I will put a plug in, I guess, pre-COVID. The city also has really great co-working spaces. So if there are people, like if you're finding yourself working remotely and like post-COVID, you're looking for a space to get away from, let's say, your fiance who now finds himself working from home and has a loud and booming voice, then like working from a co-working space, there's a ton in the city. There's like WeWorks. I work at one called Iddy Hall, which is over in Old City, which is like the historic area of the city. And they're actually really affordable rates. Like my whole company is remote, and we like kind of comparing the rates for other cities. Like it's pretty comparable, and it's a nice way to go and like get out of your house, especially after COVID when you've been hanging out there for a while. So we'll put a plug in for that. So let's get down to what everybody really wants to talk about. Let's talk about food, because I know we've kind of like danced around it a little bit, but we'll get to like the functional parts about eating first, and then we'll dive into the fun stuff. So, food access, like in terms of where you're located, I know we've all kind of talked about, like Rob, I think you mentioned like the heirloom market. Justis and Danielle, I know you mentioned like being, near all the food. How accessible are grocery stores and like farmers markets and stuff like that, like based on the neighborhoods that you live in? And like, how do you get to the grocery store? Like, do you walk? Do you drive?
I think we've been like exploring all the options. So like in Rittenhouse Square, there's a farmer's market on Saturdays and Tuesdays. So we check that out every now and then. We also use Amazon. Well, I use Amazon Prime because I'm lazy for Whole Foods. But we also do go to Whole Foods sometimes when we're biking. We also check out like Reading Terminal as well. So we've just kind of like spanned the gamut of like exploring different ways of getting to grocery stores, delivery, and farmers market.
Awesome. For those of you who don't know, Reading Terminal is it's like a big indoor market. It's actually one of the oldest open air markets in the country, and it's located like right off of the Market Frankfurt and Broad Street Line. Cool. Well, Josh actually, sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, Josh kind of gave me a little bit of a nudge that like we, in the interest of time, maybe we should just hop into the fun stuff and talk about our favorite restaurants and hop in there.
Hey, all right, let's go. All right, so you got a couple of spots, right? You got Bon Bon, which is this amazing, flavorful Latin vegan spot, which is like in Center City. You got, what's the sushi spot? Zama Sushi. Get the Rittenhouse Square 3. You get it for $20. Delicious scallop sushi, incredible. There's this really good Indian spot. What's it called? That we go to around the corner. Vita's Indians, really, really good. JJ's Thai, off the chain. So like they got just so many really good, just eclectic mixes that span the gamut. And then I know we'll get to this conversation, but we'll probably just jump into it too. Jim's Cheesesteaks on South Street, go down, change your life. I know there's a bunch of different perspectives on who got the best cheesesteak in Philly, but we definitely love Jim's. So shout out to Jim's. And yeah, that's where we are with the food. We went to Restaurant Week. Oh, they got Restaurant Week here. Off the chain. Really, really affordable food. $15-20. You get the little sample platter, little appetizer, a little bit of Devon seafood right below. Yeah, so you can get like really during Restaurant Week, you can have access to maybe some what may be considered a little bit more on the expensive end of food options that are definitely out of our budget, but we're like, hey, look, and it's Restaurant Week. We don't get that 50% off discount. Yeah, let's go check that out. So we definitely were able to explore some really, really good food options when it came to that. So that's my review.
Pro tip.
Yeah, so to echo off that, Justice, that Restaurant Week is amazing. It's that every neighborhood has their own Restaurant Week here in Philadelphia.
Buddy.
That and every neighborhood has like their own food scene. So even though I live in Fairmount, that I enjoy going out in Center City East or the Rittenhouse area or Old City. But recently that Northern Liberties and Fishtown, that has been like the go-to new happening food scene. That you have all these chefs have been coming down from New York, opening up their own shops. That some have been rated top in the country. That like I'm not going to identify just anyone in particular, but they are phenomenal. That you can go on an eating tour of Philadelphia, eat your way through. You definitely need a gym membership because the food here is good, and I'll touch on my cheesesteak later. But
all right, for breakfast you go Honey's, right? It's at South and 21st, and if you want to be fancy, you can go Caddy Corner and go to it's called Social Brew. They just changed their name recently. It's a little coffee shop right there, which I don't drink coffee, but my wife does. And then you go Caddy Corner from that. Well, kind of Caddy Corner. I got a little messed up with my terms. But at the same intersection is 10 Stone, which is a pub which has food, some great cheesesteak egg rolls. So you can kind of spend a whole day right there, just from breakfast, brunch, drinks, you name it. And on this side of South, so on like the west side of Broad on South Street, there's a bunch of places, especially around like 17th and 18th, some nice little restaurants, Jet Wine Bar, a fun little wine bar. So there's a ton of restaurants here. Then especially up by Justis and Daniella, I mean, there's just, every single block, there's 2 or 3 different places you're running into that may be Indian or a fusion or Caribbean or you name it.
Greer, do you have any like hot spots or must visit restaurants?
Oh, as far as I mean, anywhere on like Frankfurt Ave, up past Girard, up in Fishtown, there's restaurant after restaurant after restaurant. So I like Frankfurt Hall. I just think it's a fun little spot. You can go there all year, even though it's outdoors, so you can still go now. So I think that's a fun spot. And then there's, not going too into the cheesesteaks, but there is Joe's Cheesesteaks right on that block too. So you have options. You can't really go wrong in that neighborhood for food.
All right, that's a solid choice. I'm gonna put in a plug for East Passyunk Avenue, come south. We have like some Top Chef restaurants. Laurel has got Townsend, or not Townsend, in the valley down there. That's my plug. But let's just dive into cheesesteaks, because I get a lot of flack. My fiance is from West Philadelphia, born and raised, and I once said that you should get an Italian roast pork sandwich when you come to Philadelphia and skip the cheesesteak, and I heard about that for a long time. So I will pass it to you all for your recommendations on cheesesteaks.
I'm just going to jump all over this. So just for everyone who's tuned in, that you got to figure out what kind of meat you like first, that you like your meat chopped or sliced, because that's a big difference depending on where you go. And then you also have to understand that with or without, yes, W-I-T, there's no H. That means with fried onions or without fried onions. And then you have your cheese options. You have your that you got the Philly cheese whiz, which is that canned cheese that they warm up and slap on the roll. That you got your American cheese, your provolone, your mozzarella, and then if the place actually melts the cheese on or not. So I can go on and on, but those are a few quick pro tips. That my go-to order is provolone wit, and I love going to Steve's. That I think that they do the sliced steak. I think it's a great combination of meat, bread, and cheese. So Steve's, located in Center City. Their original location is in the Northeast.
Solid rec.
I don't think I could go into that much detail about cheesesteaks if I wanted to, but I have the same order, provolone with, and I prefer Tony Luke's. So you do kind of have to drive to that one, but you can't go wrong there.
That's my favorite too.
The roast beef sandwich is a great play. And I think
Yeah.
it's underrated. I really think it is underrated. Especially the wild one, that the Home Depot in South Philly.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's just wild. It's just there. I'm thinking, like, how many people come to the Home Depot in South Philly for like a roast beef or Italian? And it's wild. I mean, the stuff you see here is great. I think I'm a Jim's guy, but I'll say, like, I would not call myself an expert in any shape, way, or form. I did drive by D'Alessandro's out in like Manayunk, and there was enough people out there that you thought they were having a concert there. And this was in COVID. So like that place is doing really well. So I definitely got to try some more places.
To go off that, we were just there last week, and
we went to D'Alessandro's.
We waited for an hour. Still like Jim's better. Haven't tried Tony Luke, so we need to give that a go.
Yeah.
But I usually get at Jim's, I get the provolone and whiz with onions and peppers.
Yeah, that combo is, it's incredible. And I've tried Gino's and Pat's, which are like, like the touristy kind of like spots that you go to. Like, there's no shade to them. They're good, but Jim's definitely, we tried D'Alessandro's and we went to Jim's, and just overall, I think the overall experience, but we haven't tried the other ones yet. So I went to Cleaver's earlier today, which is in Center City. Pretty good. I like the bread on that one. That bread just like kind of melts in your mouth. Each one of them has, like, I would add on to what Ben said too, like in addition to all the flavorful, elegant, amazing, just descriptive adjectives that Ben used to describe the experience. Like, Ben, bro, we're getting the cheesesteak together. Like after this, bro, we're definitely about to go get some cheesesteaks. But I'd say the bread too is something to like add onto the experience, right? Because the way in which the bread, you bite into it, the texture, feel, if it has the seeds on the top, if it's freshly baked, I think it definitely impacts it. But holistically, from what we've tried thus far, and I've gone to like five spots thus far, we would say Jim's is kind of like taking that.
And one
All right.
quick tip before we leave cheesesteaks. If Jim's line is too busy, and this was pre-COVID, I don't know if it's still going on. If you go to the bar across the street, you can actually order Jim's cheesesteaks there.
Milk boy.
Yeah, you can go there, get a drink, order the cheesesteaks, and I'll wait in the line, and then they come across the street, bring it. It's great.
Also plug, if Milk Boy's full, you can also go down the street. Ishkabibbles is pretty legit too. So put in a plug for that. Well, it's almost happy hour time. So like maybe we could, I know we didn't really touch too much on Philadelphia sports, and my partner will kill me for this, but where is like the best place to go watch a game in Philly, like I guess post-COVID now, if you're gonna go watch the Birds, the Eagles, where would you say we should stop?
I mean, a great spot to go is down to Xfinity Live. That if you can't go in the stadium, you might as well go right next door to the stadium. It's for everyone on here. It's a massive complex. There's 6 or 7 bars all within one building. TVs everywhere. Big Philadelphia environment. Can watch the Eagles. They'll probably break your hearts this year, but definitely Xfinity.
I was gonna say like Eagles. Well, Eagles are in first place, I'm informed. So, you know, like for the record, that's a pretty big accomplishment. But, you know, the Phillies didn't do so hot, or the, you know, Flyers blew the playoffs, and the Sixers didn't do so hot either. So it's not a great year for Philly sports, but normally, you know, people bleed Philly sports. Also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you ever want to go to the grocery store and you want to avoid lines, if you want to be in a line, go before the Eagles game. But if you want to avoid the line and you're not a football fan, go during the Eagles game, because you'll walk around the store and be like, why is there no one in here? And then you realize it's like 1:30 on a Sunday. So awesome. Someone asked about live music. So where would you say the best place to catch live music is here in the city?
There's a bunch of venues in the city. I believe the one I went to was called, I think, Underground Arts. It was, I think, at 12th and Race, which is like Center City, just a hair northeast of like actual true Center City, at like City Hall. And it was a great little place. That, you know, they have it's a small intimate setting. I know there's also the TLA, the Trocadero, and a bunch of other places. As far as like restaurants, I know like around Rittenhouse, there'll be restaurants that'll have someone playing music. And I know on like by you, Kelly, I believe, on Passyunk, there's some of the restaurants there will have live music.
Yeah, there's also, I'll put a plug in for Bob and Barbara's on South Street. They do a lot of really cool live shows. I think the track closed, which was really sad, but there's a place, it used to be called the Electric Factory, and I don't know what they renamed it to, but they have really good live shows as well. And then in terms of like bigger shows, there's the Wells Fargo Center. Sometimes after Phillies game, like we saw Billy Joel, which was great. And then there's also like, you know, Beyonce will play like the Link. So for larger venues. Oh, and the Met.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it looks like somebody mentioned the Met for a big venue. There's also, if you take the Patco across to Jersey, there's BB&T Pavilion, and that's a nice, it's basically a giant lawn for a big concert venue for when things open back up. They do a lot of big concerts there throughout the summer.
Yeah, and Ben, you mentioned the Man, which is also a really great outdoor, like indoor-outdoor venue, and they do a lot of really cool things. Like they'll do a live orchestra and watch like the Eagles Super Bowl, or they'll do like, you know, an orchestra with Harry Potter or Star Wars or something like that. So definitely a really cool place to check out in the summer as well. So cool. I think we're at time. Am I right, Josh?
You are. Can you see me coming back on screen?
Yes.
All right. So one question for you that I know was on there, but obviously being the Alumni Relations Office, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't ask, how do you get involved with UConn in Philly? So I was wondering, Kelly, can you talk a little bit about that for us?
Sure, yeah. So there's we have a Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook, you can find us. So and then just request to join and we'll let you in. There's plenty of opportunities to get involved with planning. So things that we've done in the past, we have done everything from like volunteer cleanups. We have done, of course, this is like pre-COVID, we've done like baseball games. One exciting thing is that UConn is finally back in the Big East, which means that we play Villanova, boo hiss. I'm a Villanova alum, so I could say that, but which means that we do a lot of like game watches. We do a lot of like actual live games when they come here to Philly. We've also done we tried to do like a haunted tour at one point. There's like a ton of opportunity here. I think we have like, is it the 5th largest?
So there's about 3,500 folks in the Philly area. So, there's quite a few folks. I don't know exactly what number on the rankings that would be, but yeah, I mean, the fact that you hit the nail on the head, what I was hoping you'd get at is the fact that we're back in the Big East. What that means is we'll be playing Villanova on an every other year at minimum basis, sometimes twice a year, which means a home and home. So, if that game's played at the Wells Fargo Center, our home away from home when we do things is now at Chickies and Pete's. So for those of you, like she mentioned, Xfinity Live, there's a Chickies and Pete at Xfinity Live, but there is the original, which is actually just about a block away from the whole sports complex that's there that we hang out at prior to games. And they've been so good to us the last couple of times we've done stuff. But so that's definitely a home run right there. And I just got to throw out, you were talking about the Eagles. I'm curious. You can be below 500 still in first place. I mean, that's pretty incredible, right? I mean, I can't really talk. I'm a Pats fan, so this is a horrible year. So really, there's nothing really that I should be standing on here. But I want to give a huge thanks to all of these panelists for joining us. And for those of you that are out there, because of the numbers of folks that have unfortunately left us at this point, what we're going to do is we're actually going to promote you. We're going to stay right here, if that's okay. So there's no need to jump over. So if you just hang out for 1 second, what we're going to do is we're going to promote you in. And people are jumping. Oh, don't leave. I can't give you. Oh, everybody left. And the show is over. What is that all about? I can't even give away hats.
No, they didn't. I promoted them to panelists.
Oh,
so
Jody already did? Well, she's beating me to it. So I'm looking, I'm going to hit the attendees and everybody's gone.
No, Emily and
there we
Jess
go.
are on
All
now.
right. All right. So hang on. Let's see if we can do this. All right. Well, we can't get your videos on for some reason. So let's try.
Emily's video is on. Jessica is not yet.
All right. There we go. Hi, Emily. Everybody else took off. You guys are the lucky ones. Hang on. Let's see if we can get you unmuted first. And I'm going to go here and stop recording. So for those of you watching at home, thanks so much for joining us. And we'll talk to you later.